The bell rings, not with fury, not with warning, not even to tell time. No, this bell, the midnight bell of San Marco, doesn't command. It reminds. It reminds the rooftops to release the heat of the day. It reminds the pigeons that footsteps are gone now. It reminds the water in the stone drains to settle and sleep, but mostly it reminds the city of who she is. When no one is watching, the square has emptied. The last cafe light is flickered out. The chandeliers above the columns have blinked like tired eyes. And yet, somehow, it feels like someone lingers. Not a tourist, not a thief, something older, quieter. The air moves as if it's lived here for 1,000 years. It passes between marble legs of lion statues, drifts beneath masked carvings, brushes the hem of history, and everything listens. Even the columns of the basilica seem to lean inward, just slightly, like they're waiting for a story or a confession. Nothing moves but shadow. Nothing speaks but silence. And yet, you feel it, the whole city alive, not in movement, but in memory. This is not the hour of sleep. It's the hour of remembrance. You stepped into a place that tells stories without sound and waits for no applause. The bells have stopped now, but still, Venice hums. Down a winding passageway, hidden by ivy-covered walls, there is a small courtyard most maps forgot long ago. Not much to see. A cracked fountain that still bubbles. When the moon balances just right, chipped stone benches curved with age, and clay flower pots with no flowers at all. Only dried stems, curl like the fingers of sleeping hands. But if you stand very still and listen, you'll hear something strange. Not voices, not music, something softer. The stones whisper, little murmurs trapped in the cracks of cobblestones, as if they remember every sandal, heel, and slipper that ever stepped here. The courtyard isn't haunted. It's remembered. It remembers laughter, arguments, proposals, footsteps slowed by sadness. In the center, the fountain gurgles like it's trying to say something meaningful, but doesn't remember how. And as your breath evens, as your eyes rest on shadows drifting across the arch, you realize this is not just a place where people waited, it's where time paused to listen. The Grand Canal doesn't sleep like the rest of Venice. It coils, shifting gently under moonlight, like a long silver ribbon unraveling in the dark. Patient, serene, the kind of sleep that listens, the kind that stays half awake, just in case someone needs it. Somewhere near the Rialto Bridge, a single gondola drifts without direction. No gondolier, or just a wooden boat and a current that remembers how to carry silence. Gently, the water wears the moon like silk, a wide sheet of soft light, wrinkled at the edges by soft waves and dreams. Above it, the sky opens, painted navy blue, dotted with silver needles, and hosting a full moon that doesn't brag, just glows. It peers down like a quiet guardian, unblinking, indifferent, but warm in its stillness. If you lean out from the windows of a palazzo here, you see more than a moonlit canal. You see patience, draped in tide. You see the city exhaling. A woman sings softly to herself in the distance, not clearly, not close, like a lullaby caught in the limestone. One cat watches the water. One candle stutters near a shuttered balcony. A bottle tilts in a small blue boat, no label, half full. Even stillness has composition. Even quiet, here, has rhythm. The Grand Canal is not a river tonight. It is a mirror, and the moon smiles back. Side by side, yet worlds apart, two lovers walk separate streets. But Venice, like love, is rarely linear. She wraps her alleys in spirals, twists stone with time, and occasionally, just briefly, lets hearts pass close enough to notice. He comes from the northern quarter, a hat lowered just past his brow, a letter folded 3 times in his coat pocket, worn leather shoes, tired from walking, each step measured, his breathing deliberate, almost like he's rehearsing, a goodbye he's never given. She moves from the piazza, barefoot, midnight hair tucked beneath a faded green scarf, the kind you only wear when you don't want to be remembered, but secretly hope someone will. A small candle flickers in her hand, cradled by two fingers as if carrying something sacred. Not fire, not wax, but memory. They turn into the same passage off Campo San Polo. Narrow, dim, arched in soft brick damp from centuries. He walks left, she walks right, and for 3 seconds, they are aligned, shoulder to shoulder, heartbeat to heartbeat, shadow to shadow. They do not speak. They do not touch. But as they pass one another, a gust of wind trails between them. It lifts his collar gently and flickers her candle flame without extinguishing it. Their shadows meet for a moment on the opposite wall. His tall, hers sloping, and the shadows do what the lovers do not. They pause. They hesitate, then drift apart. Venice sees this, and, as always, says nothing because she understands. Some love stories aren't made from moments kept, but from moments almost lived. There's a stretch of canal near the southern edges of Dorsoduro, where the wind doesn't whistle. It whispers in circles, and where shadows on the water don't always belong to things above it. Just beyond the fondamenta, beneath a moss-covered brick bridge, a boat drifts softly in the mist. No voice calls out. No song is sung. But if you wait, you'll hear it. The faint sound of or against water. Gentle and steady, too perfect to be paddled by chance. Some say it's the gondolier who never went home. A man once so in love, he rode every night to her window above the fish market, just to see if the candle was lit. And one night, it wasn't, but he rode anyway. Now, long after his name has left the records, a boat still cuts clean lines under fog. Wide hat, long silhouette, no face visible, but always calm. If you're lucky or maybe unlucky, you'll see him take the long curve at low tide. He never waves. His route never changes. And he never docks. They say he's waiting. But those who have truly seen him say it isn't for someone. It's for a moment that once was, or almost was, and now floats in the still black water, somewhere between memory and mist, just before he disappears. His silhouette blurs behind a curtain of slow fog, and if you're watching closely, you may notice something strange. The water behind him doesn't ripple, because some stories in Venice don't disturb the surface. They echo beneath it. There's one window in Venice that always opens at midnight. No matter the weather, no matter the year, it sits atop the fourth story of a building, painted the color of dried roses, faded, cracked, and still proud. Balcony iron curls like ivy. Terracotta pots crowd the edge, half warm but neatly kept. And just as the final bell tolls, she appears, wrapped in soft maroon silk, a robe that might have once belonged to her mother or her mother's mother. She carries a small glass, not filled to the top. It isn't wine meant to be drunk. It's meant to be poured. 2 drops, always 2. She tips the glass forward and lets the red fall quietly into the roots of a basil plant, growing from a cracked Venetian pot. She murmurs something soft, unheard, uninterpreted. Perhaps it's just a sigh, or a name she hasn't spoken in years. The candle at the back of her kitchen casts her shadow out onto the bricks below, slender, straight, unshaking. The air smells of iron, grape skin, and the sea. No one watches her except the city. Some say this ritual is for luck. Others call it superstition. But she would tell you, if she chose to speak at all, that it's respect. Respect for the night, for the ones who watched before her, for every day that tried its best and needs a gentle ending. When the glass is empty, she lingers for one breath, then disappears. The window closes. The basil leaf shivers once, as if bowing back, and the city once more goes still. Every city has that one structure, that one place, that local maps forget, and memories have to redraw for themselves. In Venice, it's a bridge. No signs, no name carved in stone, no landmark designation in a tour book, just a curve of aging brick, arching gently across a narrow ribbon of water, lost somewhere between Campo Santa, Margarita, and the edge of something unmeasurable. No railing, no wires, just rounded stone, and silence. Each side of the bridge sits in soft shadow, as if the world around it can't decide whether this place still belongs to daylight. And maybe it doesn't. Some people say it leads nowhere, that stepping across it takes you right back where you began. Others say they've never seen it the same way twice, that the view from the top changes depending on what your heart wants that night. No one rushes on this bridge. No one jogs. Few speak aloud, because legend whispers that whatever is said atop this arch at midnight, the water below will keep for you, not as history, but as longing. A violinist once left a string tied to the west side of its arch. They claimed anyone walking across it would hum their new melody, without knowing why. That string is gone now, but sometimes people catch themselves humming anyway, and they look down, not at fish, not at coins, but at ripples gliding backward. Tonight, someone crosses it alone, barefoot, wrapped in layers of silk and simplicity. A quiet figure with closed eyes. In their left hand, a cloth sack. In their right, a folded note. They stop in the center, not to look, but to still themselves, as if this bridge is not for moving, but for listening. There's a sound, not quite wind, beneath them, like sighs in motion, like folded songs trying to open. The traveler reaches inside their sack and pulls out one feather, blue tip, frayed edge. It drifts downward from their fingers and lands not in water, but in silence, and the silence accepts it. Children born nearby sleep more deeply than others, or so mothers say, because the bridge of dreams, just a few streets away, takes their nighttime fears and trades them for lullabies. Old men on benches claim they crossed it long ago while holding the hand of someone now gone, yet felt that hand again the moment they set foot on its curve. The stones in the bridge, rough, ancient, patched by time, don't hold heat the way other bridges do, but they hold something stronger. Imprint, the imprint of weight not carried, of words not spoken, of goodbyes never said, except here, under moonlight, over slow water, at a time. No clock dares track anymore. And so legend continues. People still find it, not because they're looking, but because some part of them needs to. Because the city, with all her arches and alleys, knows when your heart wants to let something go silently. You won't find it by accident. You'll find it exactly when you're ready. And when you do, don't speak. Just cross slowly. Let the stones take what you don't want to carry anymore. And if you listen carefully, just carefully enough, you might hear what they give back. Not a voice, not an answer, just a sigh. You'd miss it if you weren't ready. The Lantern Market. It's not listed on the back of any postcard. No guide will offer to take you there. Even residents refuse to say its name aloud, because no one finds it until they need it. It appears in the southern part of Venice, not far from Campos and Barnaba, but never exactly in the same place twice. Sometimes it's just past a laundry line that hasn't held a sheet in years. Sometimes it flutters awake beneath a crumbling arcade, marked by a red hand-painted door. And sometimes it glows quietly behind fog so thick, you'd swear the walls were breathing. The first lantern hovers a few inches above the bricks, soft amber. It doesn't flicker like a flame. It pulses, gently, like a heartbeat in firelight. Then another joins it, and another. Before long, they form a floating river that winds through the alleyway, not high above, but close, low enough to walk through, as long as you move softly, as long as you don't speak. There are no stalls, no shopkeepers, no prices or exchanges, but each lantern holds something, a symbol, a past, a small echo flickering inside. One bears the shape of a music note, twisting slowly inside the glass. It hums a lullaby once sung by a grandmother no longer here. Another holds sea salt. Faint blue beads glitter in the glow. In honor of someone who swam far and drowned near, you pause in front of one that seems dimmer than the rest. Inside its glow, a feather quill frozen in midair. There's no parchment, no signature, just the hint of a torn sentence hanging beside it, never finished. Everything here is memory, but not the loud kind, not days or years or names, not events, but feelings, moments so soft they never made the journals, but stayed anyway. And still, no shopkeepers arrive, because this is not a market you buy from. This market offers no goods, only reminders. It does not sell, it shares, and only if you're gentle. Some say the countless souls who have passed through Venice, each left one lantern behind, suspended as proof that they once loved here, or longed here, or let go of something here. And tonight, you've stumbled into their archive, their open, glowing notebook. You walk softly between the rows. No rush, no destination, just gliding silently between someone else's hopes, regrets, and one perfectly preserved shout that never left a mouth. Then, as if in response to your breath slowing, one lantern lowers itself toward your chest, just slightly. Its shape is unfamiliar. Inside, a perfect miniature chair, wooden, curved, empty. You cannot recall its meaning, but you feel it. A moment of waiting, a pause by choice, a seat once offered to someone who never came back. It touches something in you and then floats gently away, without asking anything more. Your fingers close slightly in the air, as if wanting to hold one of them. Just one, to carry home with you. But you don't. No one does. That's not how memory works here. Eventually, the alley curves once more. Stone walls lean in just enough to block the night breeze. And the lanterns, all of them, begin to lift. One by one they rise, not with speed, but with patience, grace, as if stretching upward toward a ceiling the world forgot to build, a ceiling made not of sky, but understanding. And then they're gone, every light, folded back into stillness. The canal nearby returns to being just a canal. The alley returns to stone. The silence feels fresher now, like it was cleaned while you watched. And you're left, not with souvenirs, but with something softer, a feeling you'll carry with you without knowing its name. Every city has its guardian, not in armor, not with swords, but with silence. In Paris, it's the chiming lamps. In Rome, it's the half-buried statues. But in Venice, it's a cat, not just a cat, not one of the plump, yawning creatures dozing beneath cafe chairs at noon, not the skittish alley strays often chased by kitchen boys. No, this cat has rules. She sleeps during the day, watchful, unmoving, on the fifth stone at the top of the Ponte Malvasia, an old bridge worn lopsided, the kind people stop walking on, without knowing exactly why. She arrives every night at 3:17 a.m., not earlier, not later, as if summoned by time itself. So the darkness might know someone is still awake. Her fur is pitch. It doesn't reflect moonlight. It absorbs it. Her eyes are not gold, but winter green, the color of deep, deep patience. She makes no sound when she walks. And yet you hear her. You don't hear her footsteps. You hear your breath change. That soft pause between inhale and understanding. Some say she once belonged to a violin maker, an old man with broken fingers, but perfect ears. He played melodies meant only for pigeons, and her, when he passed. They buried him with a bough clutched in one hand. But the instrument stayed in the shop, gathering dust. That night, the cat returned. She sat on the windowsill and meowed once, a single note, in a ruined scale goodbye, and never left the neighborhood again. Now, she roams, measured, curious, carrying stories in her paws. You might find her perched on a shutter, watching someone pour candle wax onto a letter, or slinking around a corner just before a lone dancer. spins one time, then weeps. She doesn't intervene. She isn't here to change anything. She's here to witness. Children say she melts into walls. Old women leave saucers of cream without question. Foreigners try to pet her. She never bites, but never stays. If she ever looks you in the eye, completely still, don't blink. That's the moment she's reading you. Your regrets, your joys, the names you stop saying out loud. She won't tell anyone what she finds, but she might lead you to where you lost it. Tonight, beneath the faded lamplight near the Calle de Boteri, the cat pauses. She's perched on a windowsill, below a music school that's been closed for 40 years. Her tail flicks once. Inside, no instruments, just dusted benches, vines curling through cracked tile, and sheet music left unfinished on a podium. And still, if you listen closely, you'll swear you hear the faint sound of strings being tuned. The cat withdraws into the alley and disappears behind a half-closed green door, left unlatched just enough for dreams to enter. Some see her once. Others swear she followed them for years, but all agree you don't find her. You don't call her. You earn her visit when you become quiet enough for the night to trust you. So if you ever find yourself alone, resting your feet on cold stone, watching mist rise above canal water like breath from another time, look for her, not to chase, not to touch, but to understand. She knows what even Venice forgets, that the soul of a city doesn't live where the crowds gather. It lives in what's left behind, and still lingers. There's a boat tied just off the Rio di San Barnaba, not docked, not forgotten, just tethered softly, like breath held too long. It's a gondola, not uncommon in Venice, hand-carved, worn by the years. Its paint faded to the color of heavy shadows and late memories. The brass trimming no longer gleams. The crimson velvet now muted with age and sea salt. But no one unties this boat, because it's not waiting to move again. It's waiting for time to forgive it. Inside, on the curved black cushion at the gondola's center, rests a single red glove, palm up, fingers half-curled, perfectly positioned, as if placed there with intention, or never retrieved. It's made of satin, thin enough to wrinkle beneath water. Yet, it has never been touched by the tide, despite storms, despite wind, despite decades of curious glances from passing gondoliers, and crumbling postcards that once tried to name it, the ghost boat of the glove. No one knows who left it. Some believe it belonged to a dancer who once performed for masked nobles in the Calle Rezanico. One evening, she vanished mid-performance. No sound, no scream, only a gust of wind through velvet curtains, and a gondola scene drifting silently, glove perched atop it like a soft farewell. Others say it was a gift, left for a captain who left, and never returned. The glove isn't torn. It bears no initials, just the soft weight of abandonment, the kind too personal to explain, too familiar to dismiss. When children pass along the bank, they're often shushed by their parents. Don't point, they say, as if raising a finger at that glove might attract whatever story it still holds. Lovers sometimes throw flowers toward it. None ever land. They skirt the gondola entirely, as though rejected, or worse, protected. And late at night, when the water sits still like held breath, some say the glove twitches. Just once, a finger shifting slowly, enough to suggest that it's reaching for something, just beyond the curve of the city. Something not gone, but misremembered. A violinist from across the canal claims she once saw a man in a gray wool coat step into the gondola. During a full moon, he sat beside the glove, placed a matching mate beside it, and kissed the air like an apology. But when she blinked, the boat was empty, and only the original glove remained. Alone, still red, still listening. There is no plaque beside this mooring, no lantern to light it, no flowers in memory of what was lost. Just a boat, and a glove, and water too quiet to ask questions. Some nights, you can stand at the edge of the still canal, And imagine leaning in. Imagine reaching forward, just grazing the silk, just holding the glove in your hand, like it's a warmth you once knew, but you never do, because you know what's left there isn't meant to return. It's not waiting to be found, but to be understood. Venice writes her grief not in stone, but in forgettable spaces that still shape dreams. This is one of them. And tomorrow, the glove will still be there, palm upward, waiting for a history you'll never read aloud, but somehow still recognize. They say Venice is made of water, of steps and stone and silence. But what if she's made of windows too? Not the open ones, not the ones framed in bright flowers or laundry lines, but the closed ones, the curtain windows, the kind that look like they're watching, because they are, high above the narrowest canals, past bridges too narrow to need a name, sit windows lined with yellowing linen, frayed lace, or heavy silk that hasn't moved in years. Until midnight, that's when some of them stir, just slightly, as if recalling the rush of a breeze, from another century, when horses galloped across distant hills, and forbidden letters were read by candlelight. The curtains sway, only one, here, another, for houses down, always gentle, never in pairs, never revealing anything more than shape, and sometimes a shadow. Behind these curtains, someone may still dwell, or not, perhaps a pianist who stopped playing but still sleeps beside her keys, or a mother waiting for a knock that never came, or no one at all, just stories trapped in air, just memory with nowhere else to go. Some say each curtain hides a memory, a moment that flickered once, then stayed. Whole summers trapped in a single room with peeling mint-colored paint, a conversation that should have changed everything, but didn't escape the frame in time. You see them, and your heart aches, without knowing why, because you, too, have curtains inside you, stories you never truly closed, only softened and left swaying. There's one window across the alley in Cannaregio that always catches your eye. 3rd floor, slanted frame, curtain the color of old bone. Every night it moves just once, not from breeze, but from what can best be described as breath. Inside, perhaps someone once stood for years watching their lover meet someone else across a dock, or a poet once whispered his own lines back to himself, until his voice grew confused with the bells outside Santa Maria. Children pass beneath these windows and go quiet, not because they're afraid, but because they can feel the weight, not the weight of ghosts, but of waiting. Curtains, after all, are not only shields. They are invites. Open them and memory floods. Leave them drawn and imagination paints something softer. They were once drawn with purpose, closed in anger, raised in light, clutched during storms, shaken in surrender, and stitched long ago by hands now gone. So if you ever walk through a Venetian street and feel like someone is watching, they might be, but not with eyes, not with breath, with memory. And maybe one night you'll catch the curtain move again, just a flick, just a breath, and you'll think, someone's still there. Or maybe, perhaps I'm not alone in remembering. You don't pause, you don't wave, because this exchange between you and that pale shifting fabric, it isn't a conversation, it's a recognition. 2 shadows acknowledging each other from different corners of the same dream. In Venice, masks do not sleep, even long after carnival ends. After the parades stop, the laughter fades, and the confetti soaks into silent gutters. The masks stay awake. Some are boxed in tissue beneath antique armoires. Some hang proudly above beds, as if they were awards for forgetting who you are. But one mask waits in the shadows, down a crooked alley in Castello, past a green door that's never fully shut. There's an old mask maker's workshop, or what's left of it. The glass is fogged from the inside. A table sits tilted beneath dust-heavy cloth. 2 chairs face no one, and in the window, propped on a wooden pedestal, is the mask, painted gold, chipped in places where the stories were strongest. The mouth is arched, somewhere between a smile and a refusal to cry. Above the brow, a single feather, red with time, points up and slightly left, as if trying to remember where it once felt the wind. There was once a time. You'd pass this shop and see dozens of masks. Pale, glittered, wide-eyed, frowning, each full of personalities ready to be worn by people desperate to become something else for one more night. But now, the only one left is this one. They call it La Maschera Patient, the patient mask, because it has been there for years, maybe decades. When the shop closed after the old artisan disappeared, no one came to clear the shelves. No one claimed his work, his brushes, his notes. No one removed the mask. And so it remained, waiting, and people pass it, and look, and quickly look away, because part of them feels something they can't explain, a memory they never lived, pressed softly against the back of their mind. Some believe the mask holds the last glance exchanged between two strangers dancing at a mass ball who never spoke afterward because their real faces would have told a different story. Others say it was never worn, that it was the artist's final creation, too personal, too specific, a map of all the emotions he couldn't hide anymore. And so he left in the window, not for sale, not for use, just to be seen by those who understand silence. People say light lands differently on this mask, that lamplight barely touches it, that it glows softly at dusk, never brighter, never dimmer, a constant hum, as if it's breathing. Children dare each other to knock on the window. None of them ever do. An old man swears his granddaughter waved at the mask once, and the very next day, she forgave someone she hadn't spoken to in years. Strangers pause in front of it, then forget why they stopped, and still, the mask watches, with no eyes, no voice, no hunger, just presence, pure, simple presence. Tonight, a couple passes quietly, arm in arm. They don't speak, but the woman pauses and turns. She looks at the mask, not in fear, but in familiarity, and she nods once, the way you do when you recognize yourself in a reflection beside your own. They move on. The mask does not shift, but somehow, in the thick Venetian night, the shadow behind glass feels a little warmer. There are things in this city that are not meant to be found. They are meant to be remembered into again. And this mask, patient and still, reminds us sometimes what you never wear is what fits you best. Not every landmark in Venice has stonework or sculpture. Some are made of wood and silence and waiting, just off a narrow fondamenta, beyond where the gondolas drift half asleep, past a fish market that only hums in daylight. You'll find it, a bench, sturdy, crooked, and unremarkable to most. It leans slightly, weathered enough to look like it's exhaling. The kind of bench you'd expect someone to repair, but no one does, because people say it belongs to someone, or to something. No one can quite agree who placed it there. Boatmen often shrug. Locals pretend not to notice it at all. It's just part of the scenery now, except it speaks, not in sound, but in suggestion. It exists deliberately, as if placed not for rest, but for remembering. Sometimes a tourist stumbles across it and sits, only to stare at the water longer than they mean to. Sometimes they wipe their eyes, without knowing why, then get up and say nothing, because the bench listens. It holds dreams in the way velvet holds light, softly and never all at once. But tonight, something is different. On the left side of the bench, exactly in the curve where a shoulder might have leaned just briefly, rests a folded piece of paper, wedged between wooden slats. No envelope, no string, no seal, folded once carefully into quiet thirds. People have passed it all day. No one has picked it up. Most haven't even seen it. But those who do, stop, just briefly, a glance, an ache, Then they move on, as if they've understood something they weren't ready for. What could the note say? Some whisper it's a confession of love that arrived one day too late. Others claim it holds nothing but a name the sea remembers, but the sender no longer does. One woman once walked from a nearby bridge, sat beside it, and looked straight ahead for 12 full minutes. When she finally stood again, she didn't touch the note. She just whispered, "I forgive you," and left. Still, the wind does not lift it. Rain does not melt it. Time does not rush it away, because it isn't paper anymore. It's a pause written in stillness, a hush pressed between wood and wind, not for reading, but for keeping. Tonight, no one approaches the bench. Not yet, but the canal beside it shifts, just slightly. A soft chime from a moored gondola chain echoes, as though the city has inhaled and is holding that breath. Beneath a full, slow moon, someone will come. Eventually, they always do. They'll round the corner, holding nothing. They'll see the bench. They'll see the page. And they'll know this is not their story. But this moment was meant for them. And maybe they will sit. Maybe they will tuck their hands in their coat, close their eyes, feel the water rock the world in calm motion, and never read the note. Because sometimes the word we think we need aren't meant to be heard. They're meant to be witnessed, in quiet, beside old wood, while the city forgets just enough to make it bearable. There is a clock on a painted wall, just off the Calle de Spezierie, close enough to hear the splash of a single oar, far enough that the wind forgets to disturb the curtains. No one recalls who hung it there. It doesn't tick loud enough to mark a day. No tower honors it. No square surrounds it. Nothing to declare. Here is where time begins. But nonetheless, it's there. Its hands move. Yes, but not in the usual way. Sometimes they crawl backward, dragging days into nights that already passed. Sometimes they stall at the same minute for hours, and once in a while, they spin effortlessly in slow spirals, as if chasing something neither of them is allowed to catch. Its numbers, once painted gold, now peel softly, revealing patches of pale blue and ochre underneath, like a memory beneath a memory. Clockmakers have tried to fix it. Once, a traveling repairman from Milan stood before it for 3 hours. He brought 5 tools, used none, and finally walked away without touching it. When asked what was wrong, he only said, "It's not broken, just busy with something else." The locals call it l'orologio ascolta, the listening clock, because those who stand beneath it don't check the time. They remember. Children who've never been late begin to recall stories they've never been told. An old woman with clouded eyes stood under it once and smiled, said the clock whispered her husband's laugh through the wood of the wall. "You had to be quiet," she explained, "and it had to still miss you." Visitors stop and glance, then glance again. They stare too long and forget what they were late for in the first place. One man in a gray coat passed it every day for 30 years. On his walk to work, after retirement, he returned on the same path, and the clock was still there, frozen at 6:14. He wept. He couldn't explain why, only that his wife had once said yes to him at exactly that moment, beneath this very wall. In a year, both of them had chosen to forget. The birds never land on its hands. The pigeons don't even look at it. And yet if you ask a gondolier how long the ride will take, he might point at the clock by mistake. And when you ask him again, he'll squint and say, "Depends. Are you moving forward or trying again on certain nights?" The minute hand taps the stone wall with a soft clicking sound, not like a tick, almost like a knock, as if it's checking, to see if the past is ready, to be opened again. And you, should you choose to stand beneath it, you won't know how long you've been there. 10 seconds, 10 years. You'll feel your chest slow, your gaze drift, and one old memory, so quiet, so overlooked, will climb carefully back into your thoughts. Not to hurt you, not even to stay, only to say one final thing. You need it this time, even if you lost it. And then you'll step away. You'll look down, and your watch, whatever it said before, will say nothing now, or something new, something only you and Laura Lojo Escolta could understand. There are stories that burn, and others that walk, and walk, and walk. This one begins with a glow, no brighter than a firefly, in a pewter bell jar, but carried with care, along the same path each night, at exactly the same time. They call her La Vedova Luminosa, the luminous widow. She is always dressed the same, charcoal shawl around her shoulders, long black dress that no longer touches the ground the way it once did, and hair tied loosely in a braid, as gray as morning fog. Every evening, just after the last bell of San Moise, she appears. She walks from her doorway on Calle del Pister, carrying an old glass lantern. It doesn't swing with her stride. She holds it still, as if what it contains might spill. If it moves too much, not just flame, but memory, weightless, perhaps, but not light. Her route never changes. Down the narrow alley, past the pastry shop that closes at dusk, across the small stone bridge with the broken railing, left at the post with the missing poster. She moves slowly, not from pain, but because she has no interest in arriving quickly. Some say she lost her husband during the war, a sailor caught in the tide. Others claim he vanished without a trace on their wedding night. A few whisper he was never real, that he's a metaphor, the kind you grow tired of telling, but still carry, because it's softer that way. But every story agrees. She hasn't missed a single night in 50 years. There's one moment when she stops, always in the same place, beside a tiny marble well tucked into a courtyard. Others only flock to during daylight. She places a lantern carefully beside the stone lip, adjusts her shawl, and sits, in silence, watching no one, speaking nothing, just being. Her eyes never close. Her back remains straight, as if someone might round the corner any second, and she refuses to appear unprepared. She once told a girl who accidentally bumped her lantern while learning to skate that the flame was not hers. It was his. Whoever he was remains unconfirmed. It no longer matters. The meaning has become larger than the man. Passers-by feel something when she sits. An ache, but not unpleasant, like the sensation of returning to a room you thought had been locked forever and finding one window open, with your name still carved softly into the dust. When she finally rises, with the same silent strength she arrived with, she lifts the lantern again. But this time it burns brighter, if only for a moment. Some say the flame flickers in the shape of a name. Some say they see her smile. Others say she was never there at all. What cannot be denied is that any place she pauses feels warmer once she's gone. Walls with ivy seem to straighten. Cats begin to follow at a distance. And someone, somewhere, feels a sudden urge to light a candle they hadn't planned on lighting. Her walk continues until she loops back, under the same rusting archway. The lanterns glow dim slightly, as if satisfied. She vanishes behind her door. It closes with barely a sound. But long after it shuts, the flame still feels present in the corners of the city. And tomorrow she will walk again, not because she hopes he'll return, not because she can't let go, but because some lights are carried, not to guide others home, but to remember where home once was, up above the rooftops of Venice, where chimney pots jet out like crooked crowns, and laundry lines weave between crumbling windows. There's a single garden. No sign marks it. No stair leads directly to it. It clings to the top of a home that no longer remembers its own name, spilling slightly over the edge, like memory slipping through fingers. At first glance, it doesn't look like much. A cluster of mismatched pots, a rusted watering can, a slab of cracked tile used as a kneeling stone. Nothing blooming too bright, nothing arranged for tourists. But this garden, this little oasis above bells and fog, has a habit. Every night, long after the last footsteps fade from the alley below, it sends its flowers, downward, not all at once. One petal here, another there, as if the blossoms are choosing, carefully, who should receive the next soft farewell. They drift from the edge, caught by moonlight just long enough to be noticed, before falling quietly, into canals, onto windowsills, and into the folds of passing gondolas. The petals carry no fragrance anymore. They've been doing this too long. The plants bloom softly, in shades of white and pale coral, like pressed parchment left inside a book for years. They do not seek attention, only release. No one knows who began this tradition. Some say the garden belonged to a florist's widow, who couldn't bear to let her flowers fade indoors. So she brought them up to the roof each night, and whispered names into their stems, before plucking just one. Others claim it was owned by two sisters, who never married, but who left petals drifting for the husbands they gave their hearts to, but never held. And then there's another story, the quietest one, that no one put the flowers there at all, that the garden simply grew, all on its own, from love that had nowhere else left to go. Below, the neighbors notice, but no one collects the petals. One child once tried to gather them in a basket. He said he'd sell them outside the church on Sunday morning. But when the sun came up, the petals were gone. The basket remained, empty, filled, somehow, with the scent of dusk and songs not yet written. Tonight, a gondola glides quietly down the canal beside the garden. The gondolier doesn't sing. He glances upward, because another petal floats past his nose, like a drifting yawn, and lands on the skirt of the woman seated in front of him. She doesn't notice, but for the rest of the night, she keeps her hand over that fabric, as if guarding something she forgot she had. Far above, the wind pushes softly through the vines. A daisy tilts its head, and, with a shake like a quiet goodbye, lets go of one more petal. It flutters gently into the dark. Not for anyone, not for memory, not for beauty, just for the act of letting go. One by one, the petals fall. No celebration, no audience, just presence, just rhythm and quietness. Like breath, like time, like grief that no longer needs to be named, to be felt. Come morning, the garden will look untouched. Fresh soil, closed blooms, no trace of the night before, and no one will ask why their windowsills smell faintly of tea roses, or why their napkins are marked with a faint touch of coral, because in Venice, some things are not meant to be explained. They're meant to be observed, felt, and released, like petals. For no one, most reflections are innocent, a flutter of wind across a pond, the momentary outline of your face in a rain-streaked window, a flicker in a mirror you weren't meant to notice. But in Venice, reflections are not always obedient. They don't always follow you. They don't always match. They don't always belong to you. And some don't want to leave at all. There's a canal near Campo San Giacomo that turns dark faster than the others, as if the shadows gather there early, eager for their place in the story. Over it, a stone footbridge arches gently. Nothing grand. No iron railings. No insignia. Simply brick, and age, and the faint memory of hands that once held on too tightly. And at midnight, when the clouds break just enough for moonlight to brush the surface of the water, that's when it appears. A reflection, clear, deliberate, but not your own. You walk to the center, pause, lean over. It isn't a trick of light. It isn't from a passing boat. And it doesn't follow your movements, because this reflection is waiting for you. It's a face, peaceful, still, eyes closed, mouth barely curled at the corners, not in sadness or joy, but in remembrance. The hair drifts slightly in the ripple. The outline glows faintly beneath the stone arch. It floats there, suspended, not touching the water, yet fully formed within it. No sound, no breath, but a presence, so familiar It makes the back of your eyes ache. You call out, but your voice doesn't echo. You wave a hand, and yours alone moves. You blink. She doesn't. No one else can see her. Not from the banks. Not from passing gondolas. Only from the bridge. Only from above. As if this figure belongs to something deeper than water. Deeper, even, than memory. Some believe the reflection is a guardian spirit, watching over Venice like a dream too soft to wake up from fully. Others say she's a part of you, the better part, the one who never spoke that unkind word, the one who forgave herself sooner, the one who stayed. Even now, she says nothing, but you hear something, you're sure of it, not in words. In wait, your chest softens, a breath unfolds. You suddenly remember a chair by the window in your grandmother's kitchen, an old scarf shaped like a sail, a promise you made to yourself and forgot until tonight. And still she waits, not be freed, not to be claimed, but to remind you that silence is not the absence of story. It is the ending, wrapped gently in calm ribbon, handed back to you with grace. Then, just as suddenly as she arrived, she begins to fade, not all at once, but like mist retreating from the edges of a mirror. The ripple returns, the water moves, and your own reflection finds its way back again. Still, you aren't the same. You feel heavier, and yet cleared, like a page rewritten in ink that doesn't scold. You leave the bridge slower than you crossed it. You say nothing, because there are no words, just a knowing, and perhaps tonight, as your own body sinks gently into sheets, you'll see her again, in the quiet, behind your eyes, not a ghost, not a stranger, not even quite you, but the part of yourself that once kept watch, while the rest of you was learning to sleep, tucked behind a narrow wooden door, beneath layers of ivy and peeling frescoes that once told bolder stories. There lives a courtyard Venice does not speak of. You won't find it marked. It's not part of any walking tour, and if one asks for directions to it, the locals will lower their voices, as if the question itself feels sacred. They simply call it Il Cortile del Pium, the Courtyard of Feathers. It is not large, just wide enough for 3 people to walk across without touching. The outer walls lean inward, as if the buildings themselves have been eavesdropping on the silence too long. There's a fountain in the middle, pale marble, dry now, cracked enough to bleed spiderwebs, but still graceful in its collapse. But none of that is what brings people near. It is the feathers. They fall softly here, every night. No sound announces them. No birds in sight. No wing beats above. No nest in the grates or tiles. And yet, come midnight, the feathers descend, one by one, gentle flakes of memory, white or soft gray, occasionally a rare speckled one, spiraling slowly through the humid Venetian air, like snow too loved to melt. They don't pile. They don't fly away. They land with intention, each on a different stone. No 2 ever share a place. The city has always been a library of secrets, but here it's a sanctuary of hushed farewells. Some believe it's a resting ground, a place where dreams come to exhale, where thoughts, too warm to carry, are released and returned in feathered form. Once, years ago, a violinist followed a feather here. He said it landed on his shoulder just outside a church courtyard and drifted onward toward the doorway. He followed it through 3 alleys, ducked through 2 arches, and found this courtyard waiting. He sat for hours, watching them fall, dozens of them, maybe more. The next night, he returned, and no feather came, nor the night after. He stopped playing decades ago. Thank you. And that is more than enough. Venice, in response, says nothing. But then again, neither do dreams. When they end gently, and as your eyes begin to close, on your pillow or in your train seat, or wherever rest finally reaches you, you realize something. You're still holding it all. A courtyard, a lantern, a feather, a mask, soft petals, an empty glove in a drifting boat, the memory of something unnamed, but deeply known, because when the night speaks softly enough, you don't just fall asleep in it. You carry it with you into the light and let the world begin again, just a little slower. If the story whispered to you, imagine what waits in the next one. More stories like this? Hit subscribe and let the night guide you gently home. Thank you. And that is more than enough. Venice, in response, says nothing. But then again, neither do dreams. When they end gently, and as your eyes begin to close, on your pillow or in your train seat, or wherever rest finally reaches you, you realize something. You're still holding it all. A courtyard, a lantern, a feather, a mask, soft petals, an empty glove in a drifting boat, the memory of something unnamed, but deeply known, because when the night speaks softly enough, you don't just fall asleep in it. You carry it with you into the light and let the world begin again, just a little slower. If the story whispered to you, imagine what waits in the next one. More stories like this? Hit subscribe and let the night guide you gently home.